Carry on. Excellent. Welcome everyone to the March SAP meeting. I'll just note that please note this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. Everyone is present. There's no apologies. No one's on leave. We have no media present. Item 1, members' declaration of interest. Is there any? Nope. Excellent. 2, public forum. There's no one here. 3, can I have the confirmation from the minutes of the Strategic Asset and Planning meeting held on the 21st of January 2025 are taken as read and confirmed an accurate record of the proceedings of the meeting. Can I have someone move and second? Moved. Mayor Ross, seconded. Councillor Dennis. Just check. All those in favour? Carried. Item 4, matters laid on the table from previous meeting. There are none. So we'll go straight into item 5.1, reports for decisions, swimming lake steps. Mr. Willsmore.
Thank you. As requested, we've brought a report back into swimming lake steps. There's nothing physically preventing steps going into the pool, into the swimming lake. We provided a bit of a history on recent history of lake access requests and where we're currently sitting, including the endorsed Disability Action Inclusion Plan and the Swimming Lake Master Plan. We also attended the Narracor Hydrotherapy Pool as discussed last council meeting, and from discussions with local trades we provided some estimates of costs should the decision of install steps be directed. We've also provided just a couple of items for consideration, and then our recommendation is that we continue with the direction of the Swimming Lake Master Plan and stick with the proposed access ramp, and we could bring that forward earlier than where it's currently shown in the long-term financial plan if that's the direction, but happy to take comments or direction on this one.
Is there any questions, Mayor Ross?
So, Mr. Willsmore, the disability ramp, can you describe that for us, please?
Would be a ramp. So it's near the kids section, so gate 1. So it's in a different area to this gate 4 where the request has been made. So it would be a compliant ramp. So it'll be a fair bit longer than what stairs would be due to the compliant grades for the National Construction Code. Would be a concrete ramp with an enclosed side to stop people climbing or getting caught underneath it. So it would provide further access or greater access to the community than stairs would. So the master plan went through 2 phases of consultation. We did get a lot of feedback about steps, and the ramp was in there, which has now been endorsed. So does that answer your question?
So we've gone through the consultation about the ramp in a previous time.
Yep. Yeah. So that the Swimming Lake Master Plan was endorsed in 2023.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, with the steps, I mean it's unfortunate to see that you would have all received an email from Mr. McCulley regarding it, that he's been putting this forward for the last 3 years. And it's sort of only recently come up, or weren't aware that request was out there when when the ramp was there. And while a access ramp for wheelchair is quite an enviable position, with the steps, the ramp's not actually going to help those people that are less ambulant, where you're getting into deep water and you've got the support of water. And step onto steps and you're straight up and you've got your chair or whatever it is there close handy, whereas if you've got to work quite a bit more distance, it's more difficult for them to get there. Now, notice with what you put there that it said the graded the ramp would come out of the pool about 2 metres. Why can't a platform be put out at the top, say a metre, and then the steps go down against the wall? And then you're not going to take up any space into the pool at all, or a lot less space in the pool, put it that way. And then you're addressing the situation with these people actually having trouble because of their ambulance, whatever you want to call it. They can get into the pool much easier. So I wonder how many people aren't using the pool because they do have trouble getting in there. So while it says there that there's up to 13 or 14 people that use it, and often 6 or 7 in the morning. I think for the few $1,000s, $15,000 that you've got quoted, maybe what I've just suggested, maybe a little more, I don't know, doesn't seem to be an enormous amount of money to be putting forward to assist those people.
I suppose I'd like to thank the thoroughness of the report. I don't think there's a conspiracy about steps at the swimming lake. I think it's more we have a master plan, we've got a ramp, maybe steps are better. I think what our administration is seeking from us is direction from every one of us here present. Do we want steps or do we want a ramp in the future? So I suppose what we have to discuss, and I'd like to hear everyone's opinion, because $15,000 though doesn't seem, we have had very deep discussions over that amount of money in the past, but I think what our officers are trying to ascertain for us as elected members today is, do we want to spend 15 grand on some steps, or do we want to wait and spend $96,000 on a ramp in the future as with our master plan? And that's what I'd like to hear from everyone, if that's okay.
Just on that,
Yeah.
why don't we have both? So I was up there the other day, we've got, I watched a grandfather with his granddaughter who'd been seriously in an accident about 12 months ago. And they were trying to get the lass out of the pool into the wheelchair. So obviously the steps aren't going to be that great for her, but a ramp would be fantastic. So, do the steps now and stick with the ramp as we had suggested.
Anyone else
Thank
want
you.
to add? Yep, Councillor
If
Turner.
you want my opinion, I'd agree that we do both. I think that the person using the steps has a different movement than obviously a person using a ramp. People who've got sore hips, knees, or problems just mobility often need those rails to hang on to get up or to get down, which is why they've got walking sticks. I think a ramp, unless that ramp's going to have access that's okay to lean on with your arms, I think
You have to have.
they're probably two slightly different, or they're significantly sort of different movements, and they're also different locations in the pool. So if you wanted my opinion would be we do the steps for the estimated cost of around 15,000 in Gate 4 and do the ramp in Gate 1 and just add the steps to the master plan. It's not a significantly large cost for an asset that's probably seen as Narracourt's number one town asset outside of the Narracourt Caves. And I think it would be a great asset. And I'd agree with Councillor Downward. I think we would actually attract more people into the pool that currently find it difficult to get in and out.
So I didn't actually say I agree with Councillor Turner on that front. I think and Councillor Downward, that we activate the step plan and then we have remain with the ramp plan in the master plan for future development.
Councillor Grundy.
I rang Mr McCulley to acknowledge his correspondence, and he went on to say that although a ramp is a noble thing and it would suit people, it wouldn't suit him. So to cut a long story short, I think we should pursue both concepts.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
Tom?
just quickly, I'd just like to confirm that I agree with the last few speakers that yes, they're completely different things. I think people who are have a disability and they're wheelchair bound are going to need a ramp, and the steps on the other side. I myself spoke to Mr McCulley as well, and must thank him for the letter that he sent around. That yes, he spoke about the fact that he's using a walking frame or his sticks, poles. And yeah, when he gets there, it's just to walk out down a ramp and walk out across the lake. He said it's just impossible for him. So yeah, I think I'm in favour of both.
Councillor Goodman.
Following on, I'm in favour of both. However, I'd just like to follow up with Councillor Downwood's suggestion of, rather than the steps going straight out into the pool, having the platform that then goes parallel to the edge of the pool down into the water to reduce the area in the water that's taken up. So I think that would be my preference.
I think a couple of things. Obviously, the platform, just hearing what you said before about the ramp, would obviously have to be fully enclosed, obviously, so no one gets caught under, I'd be assuming. And ramps, like if anyone's been out to Wollonda, their indoor pool has a ramp that has, they will have to come with handrails, obviously, for those people with stability issues. And I think at the end of the day, like I've spoken many times about accessibility in the swimming lake, my mum would be one of those ones that would use a ramp. Having MS, we need to have wheelchair-friendly assets. And I think this was obviously the ramp came from obviously the consultation and our disability inclusion plan that was done. That was obviously fed into this master plan. The only thing would be I would love to see the ramp done sooner rather than later. And if there's any possibility of any accessibility grants that we could possibly get as a council, because 1 in 5 Australians live with a disability, whether that's, you can see it or not. It'd be great to obviously have a really, our premier lake, one of our tourist attractions, accessibility friendly. Does anyone else have any?
Formulated motion.
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing? I'm looking at the picture you had up on the screen of the steps in the pool anyway. I wonder whether the possibility in design, if you don't want to encroach on the lake too much, you could actually cut back into the concrete path and do something like that, so that you're taking the height of the steps away from the edge of the pool, and half the steps are in the lake and half the steps are on, basically reset it in. Just as I'm not a designer, but I'm just looking at that picture and I sort of visualise that, and I thought I'd pass that on to Mr. Wilsmore for thought.
We could, anything's possible. That would increase the price fairly significantly.
Councillor Arnhem?
Everybody knows about the attraction of the swimming lake that you talk to. Everybody knows it's at Naracoorte, and I think 15 grand to have both is something that's necessary.
So I need some direction with the motion that is on the table. Does someone want to?
One question through Councillor Crosland to it. Mr. Wilsmore, what time frame would you be comfortable with if we formulated a motion? Would it be that the next council meeting or the next SAT meeting, or to get some costings back? So can we approve the project uncosted? I don't know that that's something we do.
It depends on your motion, so we could do it as a budget adjustment this financial year, or we can bring it back to the 25-26 annual budget review for your approval. So
It's not very far away, I suppose.
no, so from a timing point of view, it's not a big job. There's probably 12 weeks in it to design, fabricate and install. So we could do it as soon as we drain the lake, or we can do it before we fill the lake next year. So I'd just seek direction on when you would like it installed.
Yeah, Ross, do you want to say something?
I am acutely aware of the people who are, disabled within our society, and the problems we have, within our streets. And the swimming lake is an extraordinary facility. And I know that I had grandchildren up there on the weekend for the first time. I didn't have them there, but they thought it was a fantastic facility. I am a strong advocate for people who are disabled, and I absolutely endorse the master plan. And the question for me is whether we wish to spend an extra $15,000 in next year's budget, knowing that we're looking. Do you think it's likely to be 96 or 96 plus, or something under 96, for a ramp? But it's a serious investment. So I'm certainly a very strong advocate for the ramp. And the question of the $15,000 for the steps is, you know, if that's what you want to put in your budget for next year.
So to answer your question about the 96,000, so that was based on costings undertaken when the master plan was presented. That's been indexed further out, so it's currently in the long-term financial plan for 2030-31. So that 96
Okay, so
has
we can
been.
pare that back, do you think?
If we bring it forward, which some people have mentioned tonight, that price would reduce. So it depends. It's been indexed for CPI, which we do for all our long-term financial plans. So it depends what year we want to bring it back in. So that 96 may reduce.
Councillor Dennis, do you?
Could I move a motion that we, and we can sort of tidy this up, that we include the steps and the ramp for consideration for the 2025-26 budget?
Councillor Dennis, so both items in the 25-6 budget?
The upcoming budget? So
For
include,
consideration in the next
Yep.
budget, so we could have both items costed, and then if we hit the trigger on one and roll one into the next year, or we, yeah.
so recommends to council that we include consideration for steps and a ramp in the 2025-2026 budget. Councillor Ross?
Will there be enough scope to investigate how it is positioned within the in the swimming lake? So in regards to what Councillor Turner was talking about, and Councillor Downward talking about how it was going alongside the edge, is that enough direction to
Yeah, Councillor Downward's suggestion, the width of the stairs will still come out about 2 metres, so it's not a big change. Councillor Turner's rebate probably needs a bit more work, but we can put some costings to that and come back with a couple of options.
So just after an access ramp, you can say.
Excuse me, if I could ask a question of Mr. Goodman. So you're talking, how wide are these steps?
The minimum width is about 1.2 based on the National Code, and then a bit of handrails, so 2 metres to 1,700, so it'd be
Right, just for people to get down those handrails, we don't want to end up being 2 metres wide, that's all.
Yeah, so we won't make it 2 metres, so yeah, 1.2 from memory is the minimum width you can go for a stair.
Sorry, but it's 1.2.
1.2,
Yep.
yep.
That's
that's enough.
Okay, so as written, it says the Strategic Asset and Planning Committee recommend to council that council includes the installation of steps and access ramp for consideration in the 2025-2026 budget. Has everyone moved? Councillor Dennis, seconded Councillor Downward. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, 5.2, Smith Street tree removal. There's quite a extensive report there from Mr. Wilsmore. Do you want to add any?
Thank you. So as per the report, the tree's over 5 metres, so based on our policy, that comes straight to council. So as we've provided some photos, you can see there is evidence of trees heading towards a private property, of roots heading towards a private property. So based on the damage it's causing, our recommendation is that the tree is removed at council's expense.
Are there any questions to Mr. Wilsmore? Councillor Ireland?
Yeah, thanks for the report. You've done a great job. It appears in my council term, I haven't heard of any problems with this tree, but obviously it's been causing some problems before. It looks like the footpath's been paved previously in the photos above that. I mean, that's obviously been causing problems for quite a few years.
I would imagine so. I can't talk for why the residents raised it now, but yeah, that was paved probably 6 years ago. We put the permeable pavers in front of the tree to keep the roots down and let the moisture drain through our footpath. But yeah, it's a sealed driveway. at the rear of it on the private property does appear to be impacted by the roads.
Councillor Turner?
Move the motion.
Move the motion as written. Councillor Ireland, second. Yep. Any other comment? All those in favour? Carried.
Ask a question just before we move on. Following on from the question from Councillor Ireland, Mr. Wilsmore, you said that we'd put those permeable pavers on there to address or try and reduce the route impact on the council footpath. Is there any, have we worked with landholders previously to try that approach on private property to maintain the tree but to reduce the impact and use permeable pavers, or is there a way that that could be approached?
No, we haven't. We could suggest it to them. I don't think we have any powers to enforce that they do it. When you're working around a tree, you have to try to maintain the structural root zone. So that doesn't mean they can't seal, in this case, to the base of the tree.
Councillor Brewer?
Chair, years ago, I think the mini jumbuck trees, I think that we actually even tried sort of digging the trenches and putting the barriers in and trying to keep it out of the back of there. And that was, it didn't succeed or work.
No, it wasn't successful.
The routes travel the full length of half the building, so halfway between Ormerod Street and Smith Street, chasing what would have been maybe an old leaky pipe water or something, and significant routes of significant size. So, I'd imagine if you were to stop the roots growing one direction, you're going to encourage them to grow more in the other direction in the private property as well. So it's just not an educated guess, but an observation.
Righty, we'll move on to item 5.3, street lighting audits.
Thank you. Just brought this one to SAP just to seek some clarity. So the Limestone Coast Regional Public Health and Wellbeing Plan has a fairly broad statement of auditing streetlight standards and creating a priority program of improvements. So SA Power Networks, design consultant to undertake a desktop survey, charges approximately $2,000 to $3,000 an audit. If they find things are non-compliant, then there's upgrade costs to undertake that. It costs hard to estimate, depending on the length of the road, lights, fitting types, brackets and the like. We haven't had a lot of requests since 2017 for streetlight improvements. We've undertaken some of them. Some will be captured in the Naracoorte Rejuve Plan. So I'm just seeking direction from a pricing point of view to allow us to plan and budget for our future works. If elected members still want a lighting audit undertaken, and if so, suggested that we probably should be focusing on our higher hierarchy roads, so link and or collector roads, to narrow the scope and subsequent costs.
So can I ask, the 2,000 to 3,000 is per road?
Per road.
Per road, okay. Any questions from anyone?
I'd just like, if I may, I took the liberty of reading Mr. Wilsmore the Limestone Coast Regional Health and Wellbeing Plan, which has been began operation in about 2019. I note that there were it was to be updated in 20, and then we were meant to review it again in 22 and again in 24. And none of these updates, to my knowledge, I asked today, seem to have been done. And it's up for review in 2025. There are certain things, and I'd like to encourage members to read that document before it comes up for review in 2025. If the LCLGA bring it before council, but there are many things in there that may interest members. Just a comment. Thank you.
No worries, thanks, Mayor Ross. Is there any questions about this item to Mr. Wilsmore, or is everyone happy with the motion? And if so, can I, Councillor Ireland? Sorry? No?
Mr. Wilsmore, what would be the effect if we were to only do urban link roads under this examples and not even the collector roads? Just trying to cut our costs down and what we're looking at. I mean, is that a possibility?
That's certainly anything's a possibility. So urban link roads are suggested in the report. That brings it down to 7 roads. So they're our link roads, so they get the least traffic. There's a reason why they're on the link roads. So that's certainly something we can look at, just the link roads. We've had a few requests from residents about link roads. Only Arthur Street wasn't into that one, but yeah, certainly narrow that down to 7 roads. Certainly reduces the scope and costs.
Councillor Grundy.
What sort of costs are we looking at this stage on a gross basis?
On this stage,
based on the recommendation?
Well, based on the recommendation, it was 15 plus 7 roads, 22. So,
10 roads.
about $3,000 a pop, 66,000
How much money? 66.
just for the audit.
Just for the audit? I thought that was including the light globes.
No, it's not. So hence why I brought the report, because it has significant financial impacts. So if you want to go with link roads, 7 roads, we can target those, and that would give us an idea on the cost for upgrades.
So what might the cost be for the upgrades, do you think? Do you have an idea?
I couldn't guess. We haven't done whole roads in my time, so I wouldn't hazard a guess. I made some inquiries with SA Power Networks, but they come back with existing posts, locations, fitting types, bracket types, length of roads, so they weren't going to provide, say, a unit rate, so to speak.
So given the circumstances, would it be an idea to maybe go down the path of assessing link roads to begin with a view to following up with collector roads at a later date?
Yes, certainly. That's up for elected members. That's certainly an option we could understand.
Would most of the urban link and collector roads, is this to upgrade the existing lighting, or is this to putting this lighting on these? Wouldn't they?
So it depends on the assessment. So sometimes they can use the existing lights and add to them, or they have to replace all the old metal halide with LED lights. So
thinking of those, obviously the main roads, a lot of them already have lighting actually on them.
yeah, they've all got lighting on them.
Yeah.
This is just upgrading to current standards. So
Councillor Goodman, did you?
Just to aid in my understanding, I understand that this is something that is put in the Regional Health and Wellbeing Plan that's been endorsed by this council. Is it mandated outside of that? And so it's a practice that we've signed up to as part of that plan. And secondly, the audit and the outcomes of that, what is that mandated under, or is that best practice from SA Power Networks, or where does that sit in terms of what we need to adhere to?
So they assess against the Australian standards, which sets a minimum lighting standards for roads. Again, that's based on the road usage, so they've got a different hierarchy to us, but similar hierarchy to what we have based on CBD areas, residential areas, collector roads, that sort of thing. So there's different lighting categories which have different lux levels that they'll target. So we set those based on our infrastructure standard guidelines. So that sets out collector roads, high use roads, and residential roads. So they'll assess it against a standard, and they'll report back what needs to be done, if works needs to be done, and how they go about it. So we can do the assessment, and then we'll get an idea on cost once the assessment's been done, if that's the direction.
So just to follow on from that, is it similar then to like when we do road designs and there's the Australian standard recommended setbacks for the type of road, but then council can decide on, what we are happy with in regard to that? So we might get the audit back and there'll be suggestions, and we can decide on our comfort level which may be below that is suggested, but because it's not mandated, it can be at our decision.
Your decision. Yeah, the members' decision. So, and that's what I've said in the report. Do elected members still want to continue with this action? So we don't need to do it. It's just you guys have directed us staff to do it. So we're just trying to seek clarity so we don't start putting up budget items that aren't going to be supported.
Harris?
I note that it's an order of streetlight standards, not of roads. So is there some difference between what we could call residential streets and the requirement to have street lighting? And is the street lighting for a special purpose, and is for the roads, is that there for the road user or is it there for the footpath user? Are these things yet to be determined?
So the Australian standards identifies that. So
What does it identify?
So street lights aren't just for road users. So it provides safety, it provides amenity to the street. So for pedestrians walking in the street, they like a bit of throw from the lights. So it's not just focus on the road, it's the actual enclosure. So that's in my response to Councillor Goodman, the standards set that in place that we would apply to certain roads. So our local roads wouldn't have the same lighting standards as a link road. So it's scaled back due to the road usage, but then the environment it's in. Because if it's lit up like a Christmas tree, so to speak, and it's a residential area, we'll get complaints or pushback saying it's too bright. So it's scaled for the usage of the area. So a car park, a CBD area, has got a higher lux level, a higher standard than a residential area.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Downward?
Just a comment, and it's about community protection too, to have lighting where people are more likely to be visiting. So.
All right, so Councillor
I'm
Ireland?
happy to move the motion as written with the exclusion of the and collector roads to be
So
taken.
take out collector roads and just focus on the urban link.
Yes.
Does anyone comment about that? Okay. Any comment about that motion? If not, you're happy to move that, Councillor Ireland, as written. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Turner. All those in favour? Carried. Going to 5.4, Peak Crescent Avenue of Trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Just brought this one to council just to get some confirmation. So Peak Crescent's got an avenue of trees. Some of the trees are located under power lines, which SA Power Networks tree trimming contractor removes what they need to meet their OTR requirements. We get some feedback about the trees looking ugly, particularly after the SA Power Networks contractor. We've also had comments about the trees overhanging boundaries and dropping pods or sending up shoots. So these trees have come before the Joint Working Group and Council previously, and it was declined for them to be removed, and some tree trimming was programmed and undertaken. Just in reference to the recent elected member direction to remove 2 trees on Clay Street due to them overhanging property boundary. Just wanted to seek direction from elected members on if you're happy for us to just trim these back off property boundaries and leave the avenue as they are.
Councillor Downward?
Marion White is one of the residents that lives down that street, and she requested me some time ago to look at that. It's costing her nearly $300 a year to get rid of seedlings that keep on springing up in the pavers from the tree. The germination is quite incredible from this thing. So I know she'd be more than happy to see them removed from her place.
Councillor McGuire?
It is a unique street for those trees specifically. I know they're messy, and I have done some work down there. I personally would like to just see them pruned and pruned properly, whether that's an annual thing or every second year. But it is a unique little street, and those trees are what makes it unique. So yeah, my opinion would be just to prune them.
Comments, questions? Councillor Ireland?
Can I just ask a quick question, please? The Botanical Working Group, I'm sorry, Councillor Goodman and Councillor Maguire are part of that, I believe. I mean, at what point do they get involved with advice coming back to council, and why hasn't that been done this time? Sorry, I just need to be enlightened, that's all.
So I've brought it back because it has gone to Botanic Working Group and Council, and it was declined that they were removed. So I've just brought it back. So we're not going to undertake program trimming and then find out that, similar to the Macleay Street example, that the trees are removed. So it's just, we don't want to commit our time and resources to lifting the trees, undertaking trimming, cutting them back off the boundary, for that decision to be overturned or not committed to.
Councillor Gorman?
My recollection of the Macleay Street trees is that it was concern about falling branches and or the tree falling on property as to why they were removed. I don't think that these trees have a history of that. Is there anything preventing or prohibiting the landholders from pruning the trees, that the branches that encroach on their property, is my first question. My second question is, yes, when SA Power Networks trim trees, not just these ones, but generally, I understand that they only do what they need, but it does leave an ugly mess. And I don't think it's great for the health of the trees either to have one side very big and heavy and the other not. Is this something that's been raised with them before, or is this something that we can raise again, because it continues to create problems? You know, they leave behind problems rather than fix them.
Yeah, in terms of SA Power Networks, it's raised with them regularly, so they engage arborists and they undertake all the training, but at the end of the day they cut to what they need to. So their pushback is, well, the tree shouldn't be planted there, so it's an inappropriate tree under a power line, which you can understand they would say that. So we could follow them up or engage their contractor to shape the tree after the fact. That's a fair bit of work and cost, particularly in the bushfire areas. They come back every year and do their assessments. So in terms of residents, they're our trees, they're on our land, so probably some residents do, some residents don't, and they come to council asking for us to do them, which, as they are our trees, we are entitled or responsible for them. So,
Mayor Ross?
Has someone moved this motion?
Not yet.
I'm certainly happy to move that the trees, the motion. These are only young trees, and there are 14, and it's part of our responsibility as a council to ensure that we have a greener environment and, you know, places within our urban environment. There will be an ongoing cost. These are deciduous, they're maples, so they're deciduous trees, and we see plane trees pruned around the state on street trees, and they become very vigorous after you've pruned them. This will be an ongoing cost to council. Is it something that we are able to do from within our work staff, or is it something we would need to have to contract out? And are there other streets that would, under power lines, that there may be issues with in the future?
So, as Councillor Maguire pointed out, this street is a bit unique. So the trees are about 15 years old. So we can lift them and trim them, cut them back. If the direction is to shape them from the top as well to close them out, we would need to engage a contractor to undertake some of those works, so we're not working within the vicinity of the power lines. So we would be able to trim it from the ground and lift, so we could undertake those works if it's just trimming only. We wouldn't look at pollarding these trees as we do with the London Plains we do on Ormond Street, so we do that on about a 3-4 year cycle, which we contract out just due to access and technique. So we will undertake the groundwork for this, but we're not, at this stage, not proposing to do any shaping at the top through the ground.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennis?
I enjoyed the debate about the trees. I'd like to come from the standpoint of we are custodians of these trees. I know we get a lot of our community members that just want to see all the trees cut down that are near them. I think as community members, we are nearly all custodians of trees, whether that be on the streetscape or be on our own properties. And I think our attitude needs to be to, wherever possible, maintain the trees. And I like the suggestion. I support the I'd like to second the motion and that we trim them and we do everything we can to preserve them, whether that be, that biannual or it's not biannual, it's that every second year or every year trim the trees appropriately.
Councillor Maguire?
Yes, I support the motion as well. It's if you drive down there in the next 4 weeks, you'll see them in all their glory, and the colour change. If you go down there in 6 weeks, you'll see why the residents get quite frustrated. They're quite messy, but that could also be maybe something as simple as getting the street sweeper down there, or organise that to sort of come in and try to clean it up a little bit as well. Touching on what Councillor Goodman said, and through the chair to Mr Willsmore, when I put a bit of thought into when the contractors come in to actually lop all the trees around town, is it possible for council to have communication knowing when they're coming and give the residents of the town a good 6 months notice? So personally, if I've got trees out the front of my house that I hold dear and I want them pruned, I'm given notice that I can get it done professionally at my cost, and shaped the way I want it shaped, before they come in and get slashed. Yeah. So is that an option? Like, is that something we can sort of communicate to the ratepayers and actually say, well,
Yeah, we certainly don't receive 6 months' notice, but when we get notice that their inspectors are in town and are scoping, we can advise residents that they'll be around. So we get notification that they'll be entering our district, so we can put that up on our social media and share that with our residents.
Councillor Channer?
Yeah, personal experience. I've got trees at the front of my place that are trimmed because they're under power lines near the high school. And I did talk with one of the contractors quite a few years ago. I just made the comment, look, you're more than welcome to come into the property and take it back to the trunk. And the comment was, well, then we'd have nothing to prune when we come back next time. So I think that, I'm not saying that's all contractors, but I think the default is to do enough work to keep it below the power lines, but not to prune or shape the tree so it does over time grow in the right shape and the right form. And I think if we're going to prune these trees, then if we take the troublesome limbs right back to the trunk and spend a bit of time planning on how we're going to shape these trees over the years, I think over time it'll require less and less work. And I did that myself because I actually did these trees myself, and there's not much need for a problem that was reoccurring every second year of high school kids bashing their heads on these branches. So if you're going to prune them, I think let's think about the long-term shaping of these trees, and eventually they'll become self-sufficient. You see in the city where some of these big elms have been forked and are growing either side of power lines and don't seem to disrupt property and don't require a lot of regular maintenance. So I'm all in favour of retaining trees, but I like to see them, if they're going to be pruned, let's prune them for the longer growth and just pick out the best branches and hero those and trim out all the rest of the stuff so that we're not going back every year or every 2 years.
Okay, any other comments? I put that motion that we will trim only. Is that going to be enough for you to work with?
Yeah, it's fine.
The trees along Peak Crescent. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 5.5 is 13 Macleay Street tree removal request. Mr Wilson.
Thank you. Just had another request for tree removals. So staff have discussed the residents' concerns. The resident did address some additional works on his retaining wall. He's still concerned that the damage is being caused by the street trees. They are a different species to what council usually plant, so it's unknown if it was council or a resident. The trees are quite excessive in height and spread for the location that they're planted in. In previous situations such as this, council has had non-destructive trenching done just to identify if roots are spreading towards the house or the wall in this situation, to identify if the tree roots are impacting on the wall as the resident believes. So recommendation is that further investigation be that non-destructive trenching is undertaken to assess any tree roots impacting on this wall.
Councillor Maguire?
I've had a look at the property and spoken to the owners, and it is an ornamental pair, and they have exceeded sort of. I don't think when they were first planted in the district or in Narrabri, they were expected to grow as aggressively or as high as they do in other places, but they seem to flourish here and do really well. I just think, again, by the time council pays to have a look and dig trenches, and you can see the retaining wall, there certainly is, probably doesn't do it justice, but there is a fair drop off to the lawn. Again, those trees there, that's probably maybe, quite tell me if I'm wrong, maybe about 8 years worth of growth. But they do want trees on their nature strip. But I think it would be easier for just to remove those trees and put something in a little more suitable.
Yes.
Can I have a question of Councillor Maguire?
If I can answer it.
How old do you think they may be?
Oh, look, if it's going by the pairs at my place, and that's getting plenty of water from an irrigated lawn, maybe 8 years.
Have you got Bradford tree pears at your place?
I have, yeah. Sorry, I've got ornamental pears. I've got 3 different species. I don't know if it's the exact species.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, if they're 8 years old, they've got a short lifespan, 12 to 15, and they are indigenous to China and Vietnam. It's mostly not the ideal climate at Narrabri, so they mightn't reach their full potential. But given their life, and what might be the expense of cutting down by the wall to check the roots out, Mr. Willsmore?
Just to get the vac truck, like 1,500, I'd say.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I sort of concur with Councillor Maguire that, if $1,500 to do that, you could maybe remove them and put a more appropriate tree there. This particular tree can be, actually escapes gardens and becomes an invasive species. So, there may be something more appropriate.
Councillor Turner?
Yeah, I've seen cases of where people have planted this with good intention in suburbs around Adelaide, and having walked around that suburb in a short space of years, they've really got out of control in their front yard. I think I call them like a Manchurian pear. We've got them at home, but had them for a long time. They can be quite aggressive in their roots. But I think they're the same or very similar tree to what SAL have got out the front of their place. I know they had issues with stuff dropping on cars, and I had to give them an aggressive prune a few years ago, but they've come back pretty big. And I think these trees, with the best intention, they're nice when they're young, but they actually get out of control and get a lot bigger, and their roots are a lot more invasive than what people think. So it starts out as an ornamental pear and ends up as an ornamental root with some green stuff on top of it, I think.
Councillor Goodman?
It sounds like to date we've just been talking about one tree, but the photos up there suggest that there's a number of them planted along the road, perhaps up to 3.
There's 2 directly in front of this property.
So are we, given the context and the conversation about these becoming pests, and are we now talking about removing all of the ones on the street, or only the ones that are causing a problem to the wall? Because
Two out front.
Yeah, it's not an avenue of trees, so there's callistemons further on down the street.
Thank
So
you.
these-
Behind them, I think there's just some large gums, which I don't think there's anything in front of the property back towards me.
Yeah.
Across the road.
callistemons.
Looking for some direction on the motion. Do we want to, Councillor Maguire?
I'd just like to move that council remove the trees at council's expense.
And
And
replant
replace.
and replace with a more appropriate species. Does that sound? Yep. Just.
And then you remove the trees.
Mr. Wilson, if I may just have a supplementary question. The Botanical Working Group and your advisors, when you're selecting street trees, you're obviously not selecting trees that have a vigorous root system that that is invasive or likely to cause issues.
Yep, correct. There's a street tree guide specifically for street trees, so it talks about the not aggressive root system. So we target that based on the species. So here we've set a lesser invasive tree. We're still only 2 metres off the wall, so we'd probably look at putting a root barrier system, a root bowl around the tree when we plant it, so it sends the roots down, not across, searching for water, just to assist this, because 2 metres for any tree isn't a massive area.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. There's no way you can stop a tree root being attracted to moisture. So, apart from your suggestion.
Well, yeah, correct. As Councillor Turner pointed out with a mini jumbuck example, it chased halfway through the building looking for water, but it was still a fairly large root by the time it was uncovered.
Okay, so the motion at the moment is written that the trees are adjacent to 13 Macleay Street are removed to council's expense and replaced with a more appropriate species. That has been moved by Councillor Maguire. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Downwood. Any other discussion? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Follow-up question.
Councillor Jones?
Just in relation to residents planting trees on the verge, obviously that's a no-no.
It's not a no-no. We encourage all residents to look after their verges, but there's certain guidelines that they have to achieve. So we did, as a council, endorse a verge policy, so it set out specific requirements, so access for bins, posties and the like, and then anyone undertaking work on our land needs to submit a work on council land permit, so we know about it and we can approve it. So we certainly try to encourage and work with them if a resident wants to take ownership. We just don't want to be left with a negative result, which is why the Botanical Working Group did a fair bit of work reviewing that verge planting policy.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Willsmore, because these 2 trees, and sorry for carrying on the debate after the motion has been, these 2 trees have the distinct look of being planted by the resident. Like, there's only 2 of them and they're out the front of a property and they're only out the front of a property. So in the event that a resident plants a tree that doesn't abide by our guidelines, do we go around and pull them out, or do we have an audit that happens once every 12? How do we discover if, say, I went and planted 6 of these in front of my place? How would we discover that I would have to be dobbed in by the neighbours, or what's the process whereby we get?
Yeah, so through the verge policy, we also get a street tree request form, so a resident can fill that in, and we'll plant the tree, purchase and plant the tree. They'll look after it in their behalf. So our record keeping has certainly improved in the last 8 or 9 years. So we record through invoices, we record every tree that we've purchased and location of them. So we've got good data now. 20 years ago, I can't say we do have as good a data. So it would be assessment moving forward. With council staff now, we monitor and we can assess what's been planted by us and what hasn't been planted by us. So we have that option to have them removed or for us to remove it. We haven't as of yet, but that's always up our sleeve. It's our verge, so we have ultimate responsibility for it.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. Cheers.
It was just an add-on comment as well, that tree planting by council, it just constantly evolves as well. If you go back years and years ago, we were still planting itchy pod trees. There's still oleanders planted as street trees. Things that we just would not think about planting now are still located around town. I guess we learn by our mistakes, and you learn as you go. And it's but there's a phase of trees. What's popular at the time, and I guess in the last 10 years, these trees here, or the ornamental pears, have been extremely popular around this area. And maybe they're not as ideal as what we thought, but I guess this is just one situation.
There's a vast number of different ornamental pears. So we wouldn't plant, no different to Manchurian pear, they're similar to those. They just grow too big for a street type environment, but there's certainly a number of different species of the same variety that we could plant that have a narrow cone shape, not the big spread. So we, I think, Councillor Maguire, if you recall Robinson Street, that those trees grow upright, so then people with caravans.
Capitals, yeah, no, fully aware, yeah, all over it. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to item 6.1, which is the Westdale Master Plan Musgrave Avenue Working Group, which is just there for our information. Any questions, comments?
We've received a response from the Department of Infrastructure and Transport, so it's been provided to the working group members and requested me to provide a couple of sketches, so I'll give them further detail on that this week.
Item 7, questions with notice, there is none. Item 8, motions with notice, there are none. 9, questions without notice, are there any? None. And 10, motions without notice, none. What have you missed? Where do you need to go back
Was that a
to?
question without notice?
That was a motion without notice, but if you'd like,
I must have missed the previous one.
did you want to do a question without notice?
Yes, if I may.
No, too.
Noting that we removed a tree earlier in the meeting that created an issue on private property, I note that a tree on Laurie Crescent, I'm guessing owned by the Catholic Church, is actually causing an issue on our roadway, Mr. Willsmore. Is that something we should be concerned about?
Well, yes, we should be
It
concerned.
certainly has made a difference to the surface of the roadway at Laurie Crescent.
Yeah, so when we undertake that curb replacement next financial year, we'll cut that route back and put in some root barrier behind it just to reduce the spread. So trees do create maintenance for us, but they also provide great amenity and shade to the street too. So we will shave that root system down, provided it's not too large that it's going to impact the health of the tree. So we'll take care of that when the staff undertake some work on that section of the curb next financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore.
So we had no motions without notice. There is no matters to be considered in confidence. So the next meeting will be May the 13th at 6 p.m. Thank you. Meeting closed at 6:58. Thank you all.